Welcome to the Industrial IoT Spotlight, your number one spot for insight from industrial IoT thought leaders who are transforming businesses today. With your host, Eric Walenza.
Welcome back to the Industrial IoT Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Eric Walenza, CEO of IoT ONE, and our guest today is Thomas Rohrback, Managing Director and co-founder of Staufen Neonex. Neonex provides end-to-end support for manufacturers that seek to gain a competitive advantage by digitalizing their processes and operations. In this talk, we discuss diverse forms that a smart factory could take based on the underlying business requirements. And we also explored common challenges related to technology, process changes, and people that should be anticipated prior to any smart factory project. If you find these conversations valuable, please leave us a comment and a 5-star review. And if you'd like to share your company's story or recommend a speaker, please email us at team@iotone.com. Thank you. Thomas, thank you so much for joining us today.
Eric, thank you. Thank you very much for your time, your opportunity talking about the smart way of doing operations. Thank you so much.
Thomas, before we get into the topic, I want to just understand a little bit more your background. I think it's always nice for the audience to know who they're listening to. Can you just share the path that led you to co-founding Neonex back in 2017?
Yes, Eric, no problem. Thank you. Thomas, I actually studied mechanical engineering decades ago, more or less. This mechanical engineering was a little bit boring for me at that time, and I started a parallel full-time engagement as project manager in a OPEX project, footprint optimization topic in Germany, SME, and this helps me to survive, and was a nice experience. Was experimenting and get involved since my boss at that time was not so eager to travel internationally. So get very much, even as a student, actually involved in business in India and China at that time. Was quite nice. Later, I had an MBA and managed then this global manufacturing footprint strategy optimization unit. This actually allows me to start gaining this international supply chain production network experience quite early. This was the base where I'm still pull or get some benefits out of it now. I'm an operations-focused, pragmatic person and looking forward making the business smarter and the operations smarter. That's more or less what I'm doing. Later, I joined the Staufen Consulting Group as in that time, or starting in total more than 50 bigger factory and transformational project to combine the several existing proven success factors, especially when after joining China, I stayed in Shanghai for 4 years. Before that, I traveled intensively. So China, Asia is our joint footprint or track records. And especially in China, because here the keenness on automation technology is a little bit higher for sure. You know it as in Europe. That's why I was able to combine here the lean management OPEX principles with automation, IT, and technology, and this was really nice. And one of my personal lighthouse projects here was this planning and implementation and launch of these. In China, you have this giant white good factory. Everybody knows it's starting with an H, but for them, with their huge team, we built up this connected refrigerator factory in Shenyang, and this was a really busy time. But here we had chance to bring all our concepts and ideas and all things together, and it's really. And still a shining lighthouse. For me, it was like the ingredients of the chef menu, where we can really combine all the best things of the different worlds and to forge something new in this kind of factory. This was After this project, I'm returning to Germany. And that time, this Industry 4.0 initiative has been born. And we then decided to develop an own practice out of the consultancy, Staufen consultancy. And we founded this Staufen Neonex here and developed Neonex further, becoming the real driver for smart factory and connected supply chain. That's what we did and what we are doing with all over the world. Yeah.
So I can imagine which company this is. White goods, starting with an H in China. They're certainly one of the more ambitious companies in terms of digitalizing their operations. I imagine you're also working a lot with the larger automotive OEMs who are also, I think, leaders in many forms of automation. And is this quite typical for you to work with companies that are kind of leading in their industry in terms of adopting these technologies? Or do you also work with the medium-sized companies that are maybe approaching this for the first time, significantly lower level of maturity? What is a kind of the spread of your the customers that you serve?
That's a very good point, Eric. I mean, actually, it's like that. We are on one side of the digital world. We are working for the pioneers, for the most advanced companies. As said, this is one of those, and others as well, where we really need to get up and involve all the most modern technologies and solutions. Yeah? On the other side, the daily business is also sad to say is to start on a different starting point. In some cases, the starting point is, let's say, 20 years overaged IT infrastructure. Yeah, this is then different starting point where we need to take the people from where they start off and develop them and develop, step by step, starting with use cases in between. So those are those two extrema, and everything in between is possible. And that makes it both very interesting for me and all my team, and on the side also challenging, because we need to focus, and we need to focus our approach, our way of communication on the client situation. We cannot expect that everybody's on the same level. That's not the case. And that's why actually some of them ask consultants for support. That's actually also part of our role we are playing.
I think it's quite interesting that you set up this new entity, this Neonex business, adjacent to the traditional Staufen business. So I suppose you had a good rationale for setting this new organization up. What's the differentiator? What's the value proposition around Neonex that would differ from other consultancies that work with manufacturers in the market?
What I get feedback from our clients, how they or we are perceived is that our holistic end-to-end approach and thinking and discussion with our clients and our concept, what we are doing, and this combined with our pragmatic focus on the client's benefit, that's what they like most. They need somebody for the big picture, for the vision. And for this vision, we are not focusing on several verticals. We have a holistic end-to-end view of the today's situation, and then starting from there with defined improvements and potentials, and open their eyes. And since we are coming out of operations, for sure, we like also all these tech gadgets and stuff and modern stuff. But at the end, we only proposing and put solutions or concepts on the desk, which brings immediately measurable benefits. And that's important for our clients. That's important for us. So that means combining both those strong process know-how out of this OPEX best practice world, and combining this with the new possibilities out of this digital industry 4.0 aspects, automation. So in this combination, this makes, or what I heard, what makes us a little bit unique. Yeah.
This makes sense as a starting point. Let's maybe look at this from a different perspective, which is the question of what is a smart factory? So what might the vision be? as a future vision. I think it's a little bit of a challenging concept because, of course, you can think of a smart factory as a factory in the dark, which is basically a completely automated system. But for most companies, I mean, for almost all companies, that's certainly not practical today, and probably not even practical 20 years or maybe even 50 years in the future. So how would you define a smart factory? How do you help companies to think through what does smart factory mean for them?
A smart factory at the end, or interconnected factory, or intelligent factory, you name it. I mean, there are hundreds of different keywords behind, but at the end, we are talking about increasing competitiveness. And what does it mean? This also depends on your individual business model. What are the key factors in your business? But normal industry, it is for sure costs down, quality up, responsiveness, and all this stuff. We don't need to dig deeper. For us, at the end, a smart, interconnected, intelligent factory is the best possible combination and connectivity between people, technology, and IT. That's our definition. And at the end, this is very much appreciated by our clients, because we cannot assume that a dark factory without any people will work out. I mean, in Germany, we made some bad experience 25 years ago with this approach. 100% automation rate, and great. I know in China, this is still a very attractive goal behind. At least one thing is very nice on this. Really a big vision forward is you get challenging tasks and a lot of inspiration for your milestones in between. For us, the characteristics at the end, what does it mean, a smart, connected, intelligent factory? The characteristics are, okay, a higher degree of flexibility, agility, collaboration between the people, peer-to-peer, peer to your managers, peer to or machine-man collaboration. We talked already about this mass customization, and the major idea or big idea behind this to become able producing batch size, lot size 1. That means you'll get your refrigerator with your individual designed front door and your trays in according to your wishes and your pictures and your gimmicks and slogans on it. And all this means batch size lot 1 for the costs, for the prices of mass production. So this is a little bit the big overall target behind. To get this, for sure, you need a self-regulated concept that you cannot manage this decentralized challenging by central computing system or central managing systems. You need a decentralization, a self-regulation. It must be efficient, otherwise you will, don't get this done. And connectivity, connected horizontally, vertically, we are all aware on that. Meanwhile, this is one of the key drivers. And since we are here talking about digitization, we talk about digital connectivity and not so postal service as in the past. One of the biggest advantages or things to be done is that your team, the whole organization, have to be becoming a learning system, a learning company. What does it mean? Failures are clear and will be made, and it is here very much important that you allow that your team is able to make failures, and fail fast is one of those important philosophies behind. Allow to fail, but if you have to fail fast, and not after 3 years designing the new super duper ERP or PLM system. So that's a little bit the main basic behind. And since we are talking about operations today, those lean processes, this is for us the foundation, because you need somehow a standardized, a stable environment before starting with digitization. And lean processes will help will help to get started. And all those technologies stacked in between, talk about AR, VR, additive manufacturing, and cloud and edge computing. This is all very important, but those are enablers. Yeah? Those technology stack have to support, enable what I just talked about. And that's at the end helps to develop a more comprehensive, value-driven approach for what we are really doing it.
This topic of fail fast, I think, is interesting because it's maybe particularly challenging to apply to manufacturing. So it's
especially
challenging.
Especially to engineers. I mean, they are decades long trained not to fail. They should be precise and this and that. And after weeks, they come out of their engineering office with a brilliant idea. But unfortunately, time changed and is all, scrap. So, and now they should become agile and design thinking and user centric. And for sure, for generations of engineers, that's a big challenge. Absolutely.
Exactly. Because if we think about the problem of mass customization, for example, you could think of failure from at least two perspectives. One would be, is this actually a strategy that will improve our position in the market? And that's more of the customer perspective. And that you can do fairly easily, right? You can offer that as a service. You can see how many people actually buy the service. And then in the back end, you just manufacture things by hand or in a non-automated way just to deliver those first. And you prove out that there's a market demand there, right? And that you can fail fast. But then when you say, okay, we know there's market demand, now we need to build this. Then you get into CapEx investments and quite complicated systems. How would you approach kind of a fail fast scenario once you make the decision that the market demands this, we want to provide this service, but we're not quite sure the right architecture or the right suite of technologies and processes to bring this? How would you apply fail fast principles there?
I mean, one thing we already talked about, those isolated, somehow protected areas for the team in a, let's say, defined use case, following one topic in one vertical. So the risk that you destroy your whole supply chain is limited. This is somehow like in quarantine. You can manage it, you can observe it, you can check the results and get your proof of concept prior rolling out. That's for sure one proven concept. And coming to the IT architecture of the whole stuff, I mean, some of you already know this strangler application pattern. I mean, the big topic is that we cannot change this monolithic existing legacy systems. You have three options. The first option is to just buy some out-of-the-shelf solutions, use case solutions, also known on your platform. You can see hundreds of them, Eric. Yeah, you can identify, figure it out, install it, and make your experience prior investing millions in your big solutions. The second topic, and that's what we are preferring, is to get the microservice-based application platform. And the idea is behind that step-by-step, use case by use case, these new features lead to a growing microservice platform, and the monolithic system will be reduced step-by-step over the time. And that's, we believe, how you can manage both speed on implementation, transformation speed. Yeah. On the other hand, have a step-by-step development of your IT architecture. Because somehow the key question here, as you said, is how do we create a legacy monolithic application into a microservice application or architecture? So that's actually one of our favorite approaches, because it's very low risk and the customer can make their experience, can develop their team. And this is an open, easy to roll out and easy to develop further platform. Yeah. Low cost, very quick, and even so all the known cloud services, you can also roll it out to the whole company within hours or days, let's say. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe you can share your perspective on how the IT infrastructure of the future, or how the kind of a modern IT infrastructure should look. So I guess the traditional would be you have a SCADA that manages how different pieces of equipment operate. Then you have an MES that coordinates across the factory processes. And then you have an ERP system that manages more organization level data, but maybe production people are generally, in my experience, not really allowed to touch ERP very much. So it's not really real-time integrated in any sense in many cases. And if we now talk about a platform in this composition, where would that fit? Are we adding a new layer to the IT architecture? Are we replacing the MES system with a more agile platform that can perform that functionality in addition to other functionalities? How would you look at where the platform fits into the traditional infrastructure?
Yes, very good question. I mean, after you make your own, also your first experiences and your proof of concept, and this platform has been somehow accepted, or the result is services, business-driven, value-driven services. Yes, this is then an intermediate level and platform into your pyramid, and you have both the flexibility of adding solutions and services according to the business need. And for sure, we need this integrated interfaces to your existing monolithic ERP or PLM system. This for sure must be ensured. All the data should come from one source, no doubts on that. We don't try to mess up everything. You are right, the production operations people are not allowed to make too many experiments here, because if you are in R&D or in your laboratory and you fail, okay, it's part of the game. Yeah, fail fast. But if you fail in the operations and your whole daily business, your whole supply chain is shut down due to some stupid interface problem, you really have big challenges. So that's why to install or to have this platform-based microservice, cloud-native application-based level, this is for us a smart solution. For me, it's like a Lego for the industrial IT landscape. It's deployable on any cloud provider or premise. And all the standard tasks you need to manage, you do it once. All this ID access management, central locking and monitoring system, disaster recovering, all this can be done in this intermediate platform. That's why you have once your corporate IT and ERP guys on board normally very quickly, because they feel, okay, we can somehow provide both the safety, because they are very much focused on safety and security. And on the other side, they understand, or the better ones understand, okay, our operation need more flexibility and more UI-focused tools and this kind of stuff. And that's a reasonable, good approach from our point of view, very much appreciated.
How do you see the IT organization evolving here? Because traditionally, many IT organizations have been more or less kind of maintenance functions to an extent, or deploy something and then maintain the system. And I feel like here we're asking them to be quite a bit more innovative in terms of thinking of how things could be done than they were in the past. And IT is potentially becoming much more of a strategic topic than it was 20 years ago, or even 5 or 10 years ago. Do you find organizational challenges here in getting IT to come on board, or kind of figuring out what their role is versus, let's say, manufacturing engineering? Or is this typically kind of a smooth communication for you?
Here we also see the traditional old organizations and the new ones, or the modern ones. But the IT functionality or the IT management, I mean, actually they are, let's say, sorry for that, a little bit like the new poor dogs, because as said in the past, they were really cost driven. IT is not so much focused only, if email server broke down or some real topic, only when problems occurs, the top management get notice of and give them a call. But this is never distinguished as a value driver. And this now changed, especially in case your top management is aware of the potential of a modern IT system as part of the important infrastructure. We are not talking about robots, and this is for sure. This was the old last 20 years, very important and will be important too in future. But now those connectivity, those 5G, all these tech enablers we are talking about, this needs to be somehow operated and run. And here we need new managers. Yeah? It's like you need IT managers who can build a bold and big picture and are like coaches, like sparring partner of the top management, and not like administrators, get me what you need and I make it happen. No, they really must take over this new role. And they are now asked to be here the new business driver, but actually they are not, because they come from administration, or most or many of them. And this is for sure a big challenge. And then some companies then hiring new guys, chief digital officers or the transformation officer, or some, freaky gentlemen or ladies. And then they have their own world and playing around with the new buzzwords and the new technology. And we have then, let's say, the legacy team. They have to keep the old stuff running, and this gap in between is huge. And that's a big challenge to prepare the existing organization to take over this new role, or to integrate the new big thinking guys with the traditional IT experts. And this in the environment that in some cases the top management or the middle management is not so familiar with IT structure, IT architecture at all. So it is really interesting to observe how long management teams can have misleading discussions, over hours. They have very intense discussion, but horribly mismatch their meanings. It's amazing. Big topic, Eric. Big topic.
Yeah, this I think is still being worked out. I see now a lot of large corporations, maybe not so much in the factory, but in other departments, everybody is hiring one or two data scientists. So every business unit, every function gets a couple of data scientists, and maybe that decentralized approach works. But then it like you said, it's then creating kind of a new function or a new confidence within all of these, but not so much impacting core IT. So I think this is still an organizational challenge. On the technical side, Thomas, there's also, I think, quite an area of discussion, let's say, which is around traditional on-premise deployments of IT versus cloud versus edge. And I guess for some people, edge could even mean just a different type of on-premise solution, but I think it's still quite different in terms of how the system operates. In China, I don't know, I guess we've seen, on the one hand, very strong promotion of cloud solutions by the government, and also maybe some aspirational objectives by companies. But my feeling is the reality is that many companies are still not so comfortable with cloud solutions. Maybe in Europe and the US, it's moving a little bit faster, but still some, especially around public cloud, some concerns. How do you address the question of, what should we deploy on premise versus cloud versus maybe a hybrid architecture with cloud and edge solutions?
I mean, talking about Europe, China is different. Talking about Europe, for sure, you're absolutely right. 2-3 years ago, here I'm here currently in Stuttgart, and there are a couple of car makers around. And 2-3 years ago, if you just put the name cloud into your mouth on their factory, you would be most probably shut down immediately. Yeah? So this is no-go word. Yeah? This changed, is changing, and that's good. That's changing. So that means the industry is becoming here a little bit more flexible. they don't say no from the very first second. So they are open to discuss, they're open to learn, to see, and at the end, either, as you said, on-premise or a hybrid private cloud, that's in most cases then a solution which can somehow cover all the different stakeholders and make them happy. That at the end, the business driver get their solutions, they get their security, and at the end, we have a system what is future oriented and can be developed further. So that's actually how it can work. But you're absolutely right. There are still very traditional companies, no chance at all. Without central IT, then you need weeks and months to get the concept, and then they need projects, and then they need resources, and 3 years later they get started, and then it doesn't make sense. So it doesn't make sense to talk about cloud and edge computing with companies who have not yet defined starting point. This kind of openness, let's say.
And in Europe, among let's say the more open companies, do you see also receptiveness to public cloud, or is it pretty much then saying, okay, we can consider private cloud, but public is still off the table?
I mean, for sure, we have here a couple of these world market leaders, and they, as said, they are transforming also, and they have to transform. And they switch all their data center into cloud, the interface to clients, data in public clouds. I mean, here, yeah. We know Novartis and all those big giants, they have everything, even the whole communication and the file servers on public cloud is all okay. Yeah? And one thing I have to say, compared mainly to China, here the mindset is generally more conservative, as you said, and it takes time, but sometimes too slowly from my perspective. But anyhow, it's clear to everybody there's a big topic, and since the use cases and their competitors pop up with some additional value for the clients, they ask questions, then after a couple of weeks and months, they see, oh, okay. And then they are ready to listen, and then we can start talk about a new architecture and what you need and so on. But has been changed a lot over the last 2-3 years. Yeah. It's ongoing, Eric.
Let's take a step back here, because I think so far we've been speaking from let's say the assumption that a company has decided to invest in digitalizing their supply chain or their factory. But if we take a step back and come back to the question of why do this? What do you find are the primary motivations? Is this related to rising labor costs? Is it scarcity of labor or high turnover and then looking for organizational stability by automating more? Or is it typically more around looking at new growth opportunities by, for example, doing small batch or mass customization solutions? I imagine that you're often involved in these discussions from a corporate strategy position, where do we want to be? And then of course it leads to the discussion of how do we get there? But what do you find are the more compelling reasons to even think about changing, how you're operating today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good question. I mean, as said, me and mostly all the operational managers, the global supply chain managers, they are at the end pragmatic persons, because they have to deliver, and they have to deliver 24/7. So that's why, I mean, competitiveness, to gain competitiveness or profitability, that's for sure one of the key drivers. Either you are in difficult waters or high waters, then profitability is a topic, coming back to break even, or for sure gaining competitiveness or just secure competitiveness. Yeah? And this can be either speed, responsiveness, quality level for some companies still a topic, or just costs. And this quality, cost, service level triangle, this is still valid. And if a solution or a new concept helps them to gain here competitiveness, that's very much welcome. And for sure, everybody is aware those disrupting changes in the industry, also an own industry or the own customer expectation. That means this wind of change is almost in most of arrived in the operations. They are aware that they cannot produce the next 10 years as they successfully did, by the way, in the last 10 years. They are aware on that. And they know that the former success factors, will not work out in this so-called VUCA world, with the exploding complexity. We also know all this innovator's dilemma, this nice book from Christensen. This is almost now touched base on all the producing companies, or the former very famous producing companies. And the tremendous pressure to change the products, to change supply chain and the own operational model, this will lead to the motivation to move forward. By the way, the operational organizations, they are used to transform. I mean, they did the automations in the 70s, they did the lean in the 80s and 90s, and now the next phase. The big question is the question of speed. But here, I believe at the end, it's a question of competitiveness. And important is without any financial impact, they will not make any automation decision and so on. Mainly in China, but also here in Europe, the big idea also behind this automation and smart factory approach is to get rid of the people, because not only they are expensive and so on, but also because you don't have them anymore. As situation in Guangdong or here the demographic factor in Europe also lead to the point that a lack of specialists and skilled people will lead automatically to a higher automation rate. Even at the end, either it's more expensive than do it manually, but if you don't have a hand, you have to take a robot.
Thomas, so I think it's been a very interesting conversation so far, and we've been discussing different thought processes. Maybe we can tie this together now in one or two concrete cases. Would you be able to choose one of your recent projects and walk us through what a typical digital transformation journey would look like for Neonex? Maybe from this initial conversation of why, then through the discussion of how, and finally into the actual implementation?
Yes, for example, let's take another white good industry case, to also giant on different continent, let's say Americas, and after the qualification of the management team, alignment, harmonizing of the understanding, and then condensing everything in a state of the art or smart factory or factory of the future boot camps. So that's somehow normally how we then come to the point and bring it to concept. Starting from that point here, we then identified a couple of potential use cases based on some quick scans. And after bootcamp, this has been transformed to a heat map. And out of this heat map, you see, okay, what are the most attractive use cases for this and that and this company or factory. Here in this case, we did or still doing the transformation of 2 factories or plants in parallel. Each is around 4,000 people. One is white good refrigerator and another one is washing, for example. And just if you have a bunch of use cases, in that case, they didn't have a proper MES system. It turns out that 70% of the identified potential can be covered by, let's say, advanced modern MES system. So here we came to the conclusion that this might be wise, and that's what also our advice, to introduce a proper MES system, which allows all this use case like smart workstation, that we have an advanced production planning and scheduling, that we have here a modern unknown on escalation management behind with a rule engine which decides automatically what if this and this happens, what is the consequence and what is the workflow triggered from this escalation management rule engine. We have here something like quality inspection planning dynamically and digitized, so that the production inspection planning are dynamically adjusted to the results, to the statistics, and to the feedback from clients and the quality management systems, for example. And these are, if we talk about asset performance management, especially for environments where you have huge capex investments and machines and assets, that's a key topic. Here, in addition, we work on this digital machine parameterization, where the programming will be done through MES and the backbone behind. So that's all typical use cases handled by MES. In addition, we then use this what we just explained as this layer for the microservice app and solutions. We have something like quality event visualization. We are talking about modern automation technology, collaboration, robot farming, where we bring in new technology, automation technology on the shop floor. Interesting is here talking about advanced analytics. Let's say for thermoforming in the refrigeration industry, there are critical forming processes where you form the inner layer. For example, the white inner layer in your refrigerator. You can imagine if you open your fridge, you see, and this is deep drawn. And here, this is a quite critical process, especially if you produce millions of them in a year. So you can imagine each cent saving will lead to tremendous sum. And the different aspects of outside temperature, humidity, temperature of the plastic material, thickness of plastic materials, a nightmare of other parameters need to be adjusted. And this actually cannot be done without smart analytics and artificial intelligence. Here, we made a huge analytics works and found parameters and influencing factors which are not yet known. And at the end, this then leads to a better, deeper understanding on what's really going on. And we combine this with the qualification of the team, supervisor sometimes, quality engineers, process engineers. This leads to sustainability. This helps. Also, you can imagine those huge factories. This material handling is a nightmare, and there are hundreds of people transporting material, but it's not so sometimes clear, transparent how effective it is. And if you use analytics to double check and to see and to optimize, this will help tremendous. And this shows with practical details which benefits data analytics, manufacturing analytics can bring to the operations. Despite the question, Eric, as you said, okay, is this then a data scientist locally or centralized and this and that? This is then the next question. If they once understood, okay, this is a big tool for me. This is I need to have it embedded in my organization. Then the question starts: okay, how my data analytics organization will look like in 5 years? How all the data management will be? Who's responsible for which data? Where is the database? And all this question resulting out of that will follow. Energy management, all this use case, mobile maintenance. This is probably like my last topic here for this case. Imagine this maintenance organizations. You have 300 maintenance people, and they are somehow need to immediately react after a machine broke down, especially if assuming this is a bottleneck machine. And the waiting time, the walking, the searching time for the right information to get back to their office and forth. And Then the spare part management, to spare part ordering, all this can be tremendously simplified and become more effective by, let's say, simple digitalization. That's what we are doing now. We are actually demystifying the digital transformation. There's some artificial intelligence behind, but we don't name it. Yeah? It's not important what is behind. The question is asking the question why we are doing this and what we are going to achieve and what do we need. And then this tech stack is providing the right solution and enabling this. Just one example. Yeah?
And in this example, just so I understand that Neonex would be, let's say, orchestrating this end-to-end process. Are you also doing the data science, at least for the pilot phase, or the integration of systems? Or do you work either with the internal organization or with an external system integrator, or maybe a technology vendor that can also do integration? What does the team look like that's implementing this?
For example, for all this proof of concept, let's say data analytics, we have our own data lab and scientists who run this with the client's team, but we are on the driver's seat to make this proof of concept successful and then hand it over step by step to make our clients independent and get the solution sustainable installed. We talk about MES for sure. We are in between the MES integrator and the client, because some of the solution providers, they are going to install what is most simple, most easiest for them. But might be not the best solution for our clients. So that's why we are defining with the clients how it should look like, and then make it happen with the integrator and to get installed what is best for the client and what is not the easiest for the integrator or for the solution provider. So that's what we are doing. Closely cooperating and orchestrating, as you said, these several stakeholders and solution providers.
Thomas, to wrap up here, maybe we can look at just a couple future-oriented questions. So the first question I would have for you is, what are the trends? And maybe you can be a little bit specific here. What are the trends that you see as being driven in the next 5 years? Are there specific use cases, specific technologies, specific priorities that you expect on the horizon?
One of the major trends you can read about, that's why we are also talking about, it's your focus, Eric, is Industry of Things, Internet of Things, IIoT. That's for sure. For you, it's daily business, Eric, because you are in. Yeah, but for most of our clients, it is they heard about. They have 1, 2, 3 use cases, but there's far away to have a comprehensive understanding. So, in short, this IIoT, digital twin, this allowing for data transparency and this remote management. This is for me one of the top trends in future. To connect supply chain also after this COVID disaster, the footprints will be reconsidered partially, and risk becoming more important in the evaluation scheme. So connecting supply chain that's getting quite important. Yeah, I mean, as you said, this edge computing, it's mainly, or especially in Asia, what I learned also from your podcast, this is a top topic. In Europe is also a topic. It's not yet on everybody's agenda, but get the topic. For sure, for me, automation will be one of the key topics for the next 5 to 10 years. Automation of either direct processes, that means physical automation of handling, of assembly, of entering people, all this, what you all know from this old orange arms or the new Collab robots available. And since these solutions are getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, it becomes more and more important and reasonable, the application. So that's why automation of physical processes, but also automation of, let's say, data handling and data processes, mainly if you have not yet an integrated, fully automated system, you use RPA, robot process automation, what is known for a couple of years in this giant consumer-oriented company with 100 millions of data sets. But since this solution getting cheaper and more flexible, is also becomes reasonable for the, let's say, smaller or not smaller, but B2B businesses with lower numbers of data. So that's a cool thing which helps to speed up and to save some money. Mixed reality, VR, AR. There's a lot of experiments did in the past. Gaming industry support that, and now really bulletproof application use cases are available, and this will help to support this trend also within the operations in the next 5 years. I'm sure on that. Now, on the other hand, we can talk all about those technologies, but as said, the customers are indeed on different levels of these tech advancements. But those are, let's say, a couple of trends we see here from our daily business.
And how about for Neonex itself? Are there new capabilities you're planning to build out in the coming years, new directions that you plan to take the business?
We are going to grow into the process industry. For sure, this data analytics driven consultancy is becoming more and more important for us. We have already cool and very efficient solutions. For example, a data-driven value stream analytics and design tool, which helps us to come to the point very quick and don't need weeks of analysis anymore. Or we have analytics and simulation tool, web-based, where we can simulate decision making, for example, in supply chain. What is the result in money, in inventory? And this combined with training will help to get sustainable. So in short, this kind of data analytics and asset-driven consultancy, that's something where we will develop further and to also become a little bit more towards scalable business models. And we will do more because since our job is not that's most probably your job. Our job is not to be at the very front line of the pioneers. We are observing all these tech trends. We use your tech radar, Eric, to help to understand what's going on. But it needs to have a certain degree of maturity and safety level prior. We are going to use this for our clients' projects. So that's why this becoming now more reliable, and that's why more IoT, digital twin solutions, and more of these AI solutions for sure. Those are for the next 3-5 years our main directions where we develop further.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll have some opportunities to work together then. I think these are very much aligned here.
Yeah, would appreciate, for sure, Eric.
Yeah. Well, Thomas, for me, this has been a great conversation. Any last thoughts? Anything else we should touch on?
No, from my side, thank you for your time. Give chance talking and chatting a little bit about smart factory and this kind of stuff for the operations. Having in mind that that's why sometimes operational people are presumed to be a little bit conservative. They are under this tremendous pressure. That's their main mindset to deliver every day and night. That's why it is sometimes not easy to get into this world. But I believe here we also have a cultural change, as said. And if we use these tech trends, not just to push and to introduce because it's so nice and sexy and bling bling, because it needs to bring really value to their daily life, to their supply chain, then it is easier to get these modern things introduced, and then it's your job, our job, and integrators' job to build a new integrated framework to make their life easier, let them bring more value, faster value, more efficient value to their clients, and then everybody's happy. Our end users, you and me, also end users, and the producers as well. So that's our vision where we all should work for. Yeah.
Thomas, I imagine a number of our listeners are also kind of deep in this topic or assessing this topic for their own organizations. What's the best way if somebody wants to continue the conversation with you, for them to reach out either to you or to the Neonex team?
The best thing is to check out the website here, www.neonex.digital. This is the first entry point. What we usually like very much, we developed a management qualification program, which is totally done virtually, customized. It is done in 1 or 2 weeks with a couple of hours only, and this helps clients, teams to get aligned and qualified, and that's normally a very good starting point for companies who are not yet, let's say, who are not yet front runners. They understand, okay, we need to get started. We need to accelerate our digital transformation, and that would be my recommendation to get started.
Excellent, Thomas. Thank you so much.
Eric, thank you very much. Thank you, and take care. Stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Industrial IoT Spotlight. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at IoT ONE HQ and to check out our database of case studies on IoT1.com. If you have unique insight or a project deployment story to share, we'd love to feature you on a future edition. Write us at eric.walenza@iot1.com.